And we are now on air. The August 1st, 2014 Small Business Advisors. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
We have some special guests today. We have Madeline Reeves and we have Mark Gibbons. They are from Avalara Sales Tax.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
So I guess, Maddie, I'm going to turn it right over to you. Let's give a little introduction about Avalara.
Yeah. So thank you, Gina, for having us today on the line. I'm really excited. This is our first kind of try at Google Plus, so it's a really great way to get more FaceTime with people who might be interested in learning more about us. So our company, Avalara, started about 10 years ago. And we came into the market to solve a pretty reasonable problem. There were a lot of sales tax compliance issues that small to medium-sized businesses were facing and continue to face, but there wasn't really a good sales tax solution that scaled to fit the needs of businesses of that size. So we developed an automated cloud-based tax engine that can calculate sales tax accurately, and then also help businesses with their filing and remittance as well. And so we've grown really rapidly. I think we're well over 600 employees now. We've got people all over the U.S. and international, and we just really want to help businesses make sales tax less taxing, and we like to have a lot of fun along the way. As you can see behind me, our company color is orange. So we're kind of a vibrant bunch of everything from former auditors, CPAs, technology experts, sales folks, really fun and great company, and we love, teaching other people about our technology, and that's what we're here to do today. So,
okay, great.
I'm going to jump into a little bit of a slide deck. I'm not going to get too deep into it today, but I just wanted to start by giving a little bit of context to the conversation. So I, particularly here at Avalara, manage our accountant programs. We have specific referral programs for CPAs, and so I work with accountants all day long to answer complex sales tax questions for their clients, and then also to help them better understand our technology, to find out if Avalara might be a good fit for them or for their clients.
Hey, Maddie,
yeah.
For some reason, we're not getting, I don't think, the view that you want on your presentation.
Oh, okay.
You have two monitors, because sometimes if you just use one, I think that might...
I just have one. Let's see.
Why is it doing that?
Is it showing my notes? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. It has that view where you have, like, slides on the left in a preview.
Okay. Bear with me. Sorry for the...
That's okay. That's okay. It's all good here.
All right, let's see. Is that any better?
I think we're seeing the same thing. I mean, we have agenda, sales tax compliance, and the accountant.
I think you might need to take it off display first and then fix it and then put it back.
Yeah, okay. Bear with me for one moment, everybody.
That's okay.
Turn off the screen share. Get over in here to PowerPoint. Okay.
You're adding some suspense.
Yeah, it's going to be extra exciting when I get it right. Okay.
And I think your timing with the sales tax is perfect. I think people going forward are just going to have more and more complicated issues and are going to need a solution like Avalara.
It's amazing, because I started with the company 10 years ago when we actually started the business, and we would call people and talk to accountants about sales tax, and nobody wanted to talk about it. But now you see articles in the news about Amazon nearly every day, about Marketplace Fairness Act. There's a lot of stuff going on around sales tax, so it makes it kind of an exciting place for us to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that states are now looking for ways to improve their income. So I think that they are going after people and doing more sales tax audits. And I think once you go through that one time, you are happy to have someone like Avalara come and help you out and take that, make it less taxing, as you say.
Exactly. Yeah, we see, we hear a lot of stuff, and if you look at where the states were a couple of years ago, like in 2013, combined, the states were at $55 billion in terms of their budget deficits, if you add them all up. And because of that, just like you were saying, we saw states hiring auditors, states that you don't typically think of as far as, like you think about California, New York, and Florida, and Texas as some of the big ones that are really aggressive about sales tax. But we had heard about that even from places like Idaho. And, people, it's a topic of interest to a lot of people. And, it used to be that people said, well, we'll worry about it when we get audited. But I think the pendulum swung a little bit where people are thinking about it a little bit more proactively. So
and they are either getting audited or know someone that has. And let me tell you, once they go through that experience, it's very painful.
Exactly. Kind of like dealing with a home security system. Most people buy a home security system after they get robbed.
Right.
You can avoid the displeasure that comes before doing that. Yeah.
The link that was under.
I'm going to try one more time, and if we, so tell me if this view is correct, and if not, I'll just read it to you guys because there's just a lot of text, so it's okay.
Okay, well, hang on just a second. I think Misha has muted, so that was her. Linda, you may be having some feedback. Do you have your phone on? Yes? No?
Sorry, I muted Linda.
Okay, no, that's fine. She had feedback going on.
Yeah, she had feedback.
And I have Christina who's saying, hello, everyone. She's on the phone, so she's just viewing right now.
Okay.
Hi, Christina.
Okay, Maddie, I'll bring it back to you.
All right.
There we go.
Good.
I think it's the same view with your notes and everything.
All right, so I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna just go ahead and talk to you guys because we can look at PowerPoint another time, and we do a demonstration and walk through similar content on other platforms. I just want to talk to everybody instead. I think that's more appropriate for the format, anyways. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to chat about today. The first just being, what is the scenario in which your clients come to you to talk about sales tax, because being somebody's tax expert often means that your clients like to come to you for every question under the sun, especially if it has tax in it. And we have definitely experienced by working with CPAs that, CPAs want to be everything that they can for their clients, but they don't necessarily specialize in sales tax, and so they often come to us for content and resources and a better understanding of really how they can identify the risks that their clients are facing to help make a better assessment of how they can help their clients be compliant going forward. So Mark was kind of, we were all joking about just a second ago, people getting audited and how it's a lot more frequent. And we have definitely seen, in our experience in the industry, that auditing has just gotten a lot more scientific. States, like Gina said, are pretty broke, and they're going after businesses in a pretty formulaic way to try and find as much money and as many errors as possible. So we, when we look at, okay, what are potential risk factors that your clients might be facing, some of them are very straightforward. It's failing to file a return, failing to report your sales, having any sort of errors on a filing, things like that. But other uptick of audit activity and risk exposure is actually around exemption and resale certificates and the mismanagement of them, as well as around not reporting on use tax. So those are key areas that it's really important for you, when you take on a client and you realize they have sales tax, to begin kind of asking them some key questions, So start going through the idea of like a nexus study. We at Avalara help people access our professional services group to do nexus studies, but we love it when CPAs get involved with their clients because a lot of times clients don't even know what nexus means, what constitutes nexus, And it's really, really key. And the most important part of being compliant is knowing which states you need to be filing and remitting in. Additionally,
Absolutely.
you know, there's the rate changes. So I'm sure you all have clients where you realize as they start moving into other states, other jurisdictions, suddenly it's not just one tax rate, it's 2, it's 10, it's 30, and there's all the different boundaries and rate and rule changes that just gets super, super crazy, super quick. So I have to share with you guys just an example. Give me like 1 minute here of a way to do something a little bit differently. So this is our website, and I'm going to screen share here in a moment. It's called Avalara Sales Tax, and we developed this site to do 2 things. One is it's a great way that you can look up accurate rate content. So can everyone see that there? This website, Avalara Sales Tax?
Absolutely.
So just to give you an idea, every single one of these different colors on here is a different sales tax jurisdiction. So when you think about maybe you have a client selling in more than one state, like let's say they're in California and maybe they're over here in Florida. Those are 2 really complex states. But then if you start thinking about people being in all 50 states or even 5, 10, the number of jurisdictions is just crazy. It's really crazy. I mean, there's over 11,000 different taxing jurisdictions in the U.S., and keeping track of them, and not just keeping track of them, but keeping track of the way they're changing, whether that's a rate change, whether the boundaries are being rewritten. You know, there's places in the U.S., I just recently learned this, that the sales tax rate or the jurisdictional boundaries will change based on river flow. So there's, I can't remember which county it is, but some rural county, you know, if the river is at a certain level, the town jurisdiction changes, and then if the water drops or increases, it changes again. So just keeping track of that is by no means straightforward or common sense. And so we just offer a way to automate that process, because instead of businesses and accountants having to try and keep track of all those rate changes for their clients, we have a sales tax solution and a team of in-house experts that all they do is keep track of rate, boundary, rule, regulation, tax rate changes for everybody we work with. So to talk about technology, it's really great. The wonderful thing is that Mark's here today, so he's going to show us. But Avalara, you know, when we came into the industry, like I said in our introduction, there was just a big gap. We saw that small to medium-sized businesses were really struggling. They needed a way to accurately calculate their sales tax that was cost-effective and really met their business needs. So we, you know, specialize in sales tax automation, but more than that, we really help businesses mitigate risk, save time, and become more efficient with sales tax. And ultimately, I mean, everyone who's done a sales tax return knows it's a really time-consuming process, but it is sure not a revenue-generating one. And you know, I've never heard of any state auditor coming back and going, oh, high five, you know, you did a great job on that quarterly. It was a perfect return. You did, you know, the state doesn't care if you do it right. You know, you're compliant and you move forward. And if you do it wrong, it can be very, very costly, and it can really affect somebody's business. So we want to give businesses a tool to increase their accuracy, mitigate their risk, and really just allow them to refocus that energy into areas of their business that actually generate revenue. So, you know, as we've grown, our book of business has grown pretty dramatically. We now support a customer base of over 10,000 clients and process billions of transactions annually. And, you know, billions is a pretty impressive number, but I think more impressive than that is the fact that so many businesses look to us to be the trusted provider for their sales tax, which is such a core, important part of their compliance. And then, you know, we work with software resellers, CPAs, and lots of different business consultants, and we're just becoming, you know, the go-to industry leader for sales tax compliance that they recommend their clients to look our way. So before I hand the reins over to Mark, to kind of give a better understanding from the technology standpoint, what Avalara does is we offer integration. So rather than being an on-premise software, we are a cloud technology. And the beauty in that is that we are able to integrate into hundreds and hundreds of different systems. So QuickBooks, Sage, Microsoft, NetSuite, SAP, over 350 different accounting platforms, e-commerce platforms, point of sale, mobile commerce. We integrate across the board. So it's pretty incredible because we offer a way that businesses, wherever they're doing transactional tax compliance, have a solution to be able to manage and calculate accurately. And we're just going to exist wherever that transaction takes place and be able to support, businesses, or in this case, your clients. So I'm gonna hand off to Mark real quick, and I also have to run because my computer battery was not plugged in, and I'm gonna go run and grab my charger real quick. But if you want to go ahead and jump in here and start a little bit more from a technology side of things, and then get us into the demo, that would be awesome. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Great.
Gina, help me tell if I am sharing my screen here.
Okay.
I think if I go back to that.
We want to go to the green icon on the left that says screen share.
Yeah, let me just do that again because I don't think. There it is. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, great. So hi, everybody. My name is Mark Giddens, and I work with Avalara in our pre-sales engineer team. I've been with the company for about 10 years now since we started. So I have a lot of experience implementing these systems, selling these systems to customers. And it's as Madeline said, where we really were born out of was, we saw a void in the marketplace where there were very, small and very small companies, mid-sized businesses that had the same challenges as really big companies for sales tax, but they didn't have the same resources to solve those problems. At the time, if you were going to buy a tax system to implement within your organization, you'd probably be spending upwards of $100,000 on a software license, maybe double that for an implementation on an average implementation process. And what we saw was two things were really incredibly important to us. One was for small and mid-sized businesses to solve this problem, you'd have to do it in such a way that it was cost-effective and affordable. So we leveraged the cloud to do that, and we'll talk a little bit about what costs look like for clients if you guys are interested. But the other thing that was very different is, at the upper end of the market for the Fortune 100 companies, there's maybe 3 or 4 common systems like SAP or Oracle or PeopleSoft at the time that they would need to integrate to. As you are all aware, I'm sure, small and mid-sized companies, there's just so many more choices out there for platforms for them to run on. So that's where this connector strategy for us became really important, because we want to be available at every point in a business's operations where they actually have to make a tax calculation. So implementing this, integrating with QuickBooks, integrating it with stuff like NetSuite or Microsoft Dynamics products, or you name it, is really crucial, as well as doing it on online shopping carts like Magento or 3D Card, or even if you have a client that does something custom. I thought the place that I'd start in the demo is around this tax calculation function. And
Great. Can I stop you for just a quick question, Mark?
Absolutely.
Avalara works with QBO and Xero, QuickBooks Online and Xero. I think you've already answered that, but go ahead.
So we work with QuickBooks Online. We have an integration for QuickBooks Online, so that's great. Xero, we are very keen on doing one. So if you know anyone at Xero, we've been making attempts to do something with them. Would love your feedback or your help in terms of letting them know that this might be of need for your clients. It's a great platform, and we'd love to do the same. And we have the capabilities to do it. It would just be a matter of getting access to their platform to do an integration. So, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and I don't have, for whatever technical reason, I was having trouble pulling up like a virtual machine to show you, show this in QuickBooks or Dynamics. But what I'm showing you here would simulate your client's environment. So let's say you have somebody using QuickBooks, or you have someone that's using Dynamics to do their bookkeeping. I'm just going to go ahead and let's see. Let me know if you stop seeing my mouse, because I'm getting interesting messages from Google Chrome. One part of the process is certainly, the client is going to select where they're shipping from based on their warehouse locations when they sell an item. And then the user on QuickBooks or Dynamics or whatever it is going to be responsible for entering the ship-to address in the system. So here I'm entering 1613 Summit Avenue. Let's say I left off Avenue, I didn't spell Summit right. Let's say I know it's in Washington, but maybe I have the wrong zip code even, 98110. As Madeline was showing you that map, addresses are really important as it relates to sales tax calculations. So we've incorporated address verification functionality where when I click this validate button, and this would happen within QuickBooks like on a customer record or in Microsoft Dynamics on a customer card, when that user goes to save the address, it's going to talk to our service. And where I entered 1613 Summit and I misspelled it, our system picks up, this should be 1613 Summit Avenue, but it also appends that 9-digit zip code. And one of the unique things that Avalara brought to market was we started doing this rather than doing an assignment by a zip code or by a zip plus more. We started using geospatial type data, meaning like GPS, I guess is probably the simplest way to explain it, like the GPS you use to navigate your car or on your phone. So we're actually doing rooftop level assignments, which is great for a couple of reasons. One is it eliminates your customer from overcharging their buyer, so it doesn't create any customer service issues, but it also eliminates them undercharging tax, which could be a bad thing from an audit perspective. So we have these capabilities to validate addresses, which ensures an accurate calculation. There's potentially a byproduct benefit for them as well, just in terms of having good addresses.
Well, this would address the problems where there's one sales tax on one side of the street and another sales tax on the other side of the street.
Exactly.
You're right. I went to a conference, or it was a partner visit. I was traveling in Colorado, and I forget what city it was, but we decided to meet at the mall for lunch. And this particular mall in Colorado had a an overpass you could walk across from one side of the mall to the other, but that passed the county road. So there was literally one tax on one side of the mall and one tax on the other side of the mall that was higher.
That is crazy.
Yeah. So we do definitely address that, and it makes our customers more accurate, which is great for customer service and great from an audit perspective. Let's say I'm in QuickBooks, I choose my customer, and let's say I'm going to sell them something, so I'm going to add a new line here. Oh, I didn't like that, so let me do this again. I'm going to go ahead and speed through this. I'll just do that again. I'm so used to entering this incorrectly in my demo, I don't know if I can enter the address right. So, it's 16, okay, so I've got my customer, and then I want to go to my lines, and I'm going to add an item. So the QuickBooks user or the Great Plains user goes in and sells a widget, let's say, and when they go ahead and save that item in QuickBooks, for example, when they go to save that record, or if it was in their e-commerce site, a customer comes online and they add their items and they click cart totals, that's when we calculate the tax. So you can see our system can tell, based on the information that's being supplied, the ship from address, the ship to address, what the sourcing rules are for the state or states in question, the items that are being sold, the customer that's being sold, we can return back the tax automatically. So your client, our customer, doesn't have to research tax rates, doesn't have to build tables, doesn't have to make tax decisions. The system just knows based on the data that you're passing, because we're managing all the tax content, that it should be $95 when you sell a widget. And it breaks out the tax here. You can see Washington state tax 6.5% on $1,000 an item that's taxable. You got $65 in tax. You have 3%, $30 for Seattle tax. And this will break this out all the way to the local level. It's a huge advantage to businesses not having to research the tax rates or build and maintain those tables. With so many jurisdictions and so many changes, it's really a tall order for businesses to try and manage themselves.
Absolutely. I want to actually say that's an issue. Here in Pennsylvania, we have items that are, we'll say CDs and programs. If you were to buy a program online and they downloaded it, it is not taxable. If they were to ship that CD to you, it is taxable. So there are all kinds of compliance issues that small businesses just cannot keep up with.
You're exactly right, and that reminds me, so for software particularly, we see a lot of differences. So we have a lot of software clients where the definitions are not only different based on the delivery method within the state, but two different states may treat it completely different. So, if you're selling downloaded software in California, that's non-taxable. If you sell that same item and the client downloads it from Washington, Washington has a rule that that is taxable. So we can help eliminate that. In fact, the way that we do it is we make available, and this is where CPAs and bookkeepers, and I don't know why I'm getting a pop-up here. CPAs and bookkeepers can actually add a lot of value to their clients by helping them through this mapping process. The idea is that in their inventory system, let's just say that's QuickBooks or Sage 100, they go in and they map their items into product or service categories, I call them. And those categories, we actually have the tax logic built in, the results, based on research that we do and maintain for clients to tell them if they're taxable or not. So I had a client not too long ago ask me, well, does Avalara have codes for hearing? And, I went into our system and I pulled this up, and I probably sounded more intelligent than I am, because I said, well, it probably matters if you're selling hearing aids in some states whether or not you have a prescription or who's actually paying the bill, whether it's Medicare or Medicaid or out-of-pocket for the client. We have thousands of codes in here, close to a couple thousand, where, the other question that I bring up sometimes when I do trainings is I ask the question, is a belt taxable? If you look at our
kind of a belt.
exactly, right? Is it a belt and suspender? Is it a garter belt, a tool belt, a safety belt? What do I have? 13 items to choose from, because there's different tax implications in different states. But this process eliminates the customer having to know, how do I tax this when I sell it into these different jurisdictions? Yeah. And a lot of times they'll ask for your advice as an accountant or a CPA to tell them, well, what are the implications of what's taxable or not? And we work with a lot of CPAs to help them provide this information. Instead of having to go out to the Department of Revenue websites and research letter rulings and statutes, a lot of times we can help you to advise your client in that way and add value. In our system, we track a record of every transaction that they process in our system. So, in other words, so like if I'm going through the month and I'm transacting in QuickBooks and I'm entering orders and invoices, there's always a record here within AvaTax of what was processed. So you have one audit file you can go to. If a client asks you why, or a buyer asks, why did you charge me $1,000 in tax, you can actually go to that. So these are all invoices numbers. You can go to that specific invoice.
Is that compliance with the state then? If the states do come in to audit you, you could pull up this report and give them all the information they need.
Sure, yeah. Our reports exceed auditors' requirements, and I'll tell you a little story. It's a favorite one of mine. We had a customer, Numara Software, that came to us to buy our software. They use Microsoft Navision as their accounting system, or at least they were at the time. And they were accustomed to going through 3-week-long, month-long audits in the state of Mississippi. And, it was a nightmare, because Mississippi would be asking them for all their transaction, why did you charge this tax on this invoice? They'd be asking them to provide copies of exempt certificates that they collected, and literally their audits would last like 3 weeks or a month. They said once they implemented Avalara, the last Mississippi audit they had, they produced a report like this of all their invoices. They said it lasted 20 minutes. So you can see the advantage for the customer in that. And I just want to show you why that's so. I'm trying to look for a good example. Here's an invoice that was processed, and you can see we're capturing where this was shipped from. So the warehouse address was in Arlington, Texas. We shipped to 501 Half Moon Bay in California, and you can see what items were sold. So kind of to your point, Dina, the big computer here was coded as tangible property. So as you would imagine, California taxes that. So that full $10,000 item's taxed at $950. But software as a service is, so this was ASP hosted software where the server's not in the state. You can see that the system knew automatically that California doesn't tax SaaS software. I imagine that won't last forever for California.
That's awesome, though, that you saved them that amount of money.
Yeah. And you can see here below, it's got all the breakout of all these different taxing jurisdictions.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And that's what we need.
Well, we look like a hero to our clients when that happens.
That's true.
Yeah, and we want to be in close partnership with you all because, you know, the way I look at what you provide, if somebody goes through a tax audit or they're notified they need to start collecting taxes in a new state, they freak out and they come to you, they call their accountant, they call their trusted advisor, and you have to consult with them and help them understand what is your tax strategy, what are you responsible for doing. But at the same time, even if you instruct them, you know, go out and register with the state and start collecting taxes, you know, you can leverage our tool to make sure that they meet that compliance that you're helping them to, you know, that strategy that you've devised. So it's kind of like, to me, it's like, you know, you may perform open heart surgery for them. They've gone through an audit or something like that, and we're kind of like the fitness plan or the diet that keeps them out of trouble moving forward once they know.
Well, it does feel like open heart surgery when you're going through that audit.
We did a survey through, well, it actually wasn't ours. Wakefield Research did a survey, and I forget the number, but it caused me...
44%.
What was it?
44%.
Is that the statistic of people that would rather go through...
divorce than a sales tax audit, yep.
I know sales tax audits are bad. I didn't realize they were that bad. So, the other thing that's really cool about our technology, and this is with accountants, we work in a couple of ways. We can sell this directly to your customer, or your client rather, or you can provide this as a service for them. When we set up the client, we can actually file and pay returns. So, for example, here's a client where I set them up as having to file taxes in a couple, you know, state of Alabama and some jurisdictions within Alabama, California, Colorado, etc. So we set up what states they're filing in, what forms they're filing, and how frequently they file. And customers that use Avalara, they can go in and reconcile a liability worksheet, or maybe better yet, you as their accountant can go do reconciliation of their liability worksheet and help them to file their taxes.
Great.
Here you can see basically a summary of all the jurisdictions that they're in, all the sales for these various jurisdictions. You can see their exempt sales, their taxable sales, and you can ultimately see how much they owe for that period. So what most accountants are doing is they're reconciling this data, you know, their sales with the accounting system or e-commerce system. They're making sure that this tax liability matches with their general ledger tax liability account, sales tax liability account, I should say. And then as you approve these worksheets, at that point, either your client or you is done because we actually complete the forms, we submit the forms, we pay the states, we can e-file if they have requirements. So all they have to do is the reconciliation. Nobody has to run around and run reports and fill out forms and cut checks and race to meet deadlines and risk filing late. So we, as I said, and Madeline could probably tell you more about it, we either work, you know, we can work directly with your client if you prefer, or you could be the interface between Avalara and the client in terms of providing this type of service. You know, it makes sense because so many companies outsource payroll today, and we oftentimes kind of stop and ask ourselves, if you already outsource payroll, why would you not outsource sales tax? Kind of like the same.
Absolutely, absolutely. And are you finding now that states come in and say, oh, they got Avalara, they must be fine, so we'll take your report and off we go?
Yeah.
That happened with a client in Washington State. Logos Research has been a long-time company. They're a Bible software company up near Bellingham, near the Canadian border. And they were going through an audit. Washington was going to come in to audit them. And they said, wait a minute, why are you auditing us? We use Avalara. They're part of this streamlined sales tax initiative. And the auditor said, oh, you're using Avalara. Well, do you use them for your purchases? And they said, no, we use a different system to do purchase stuff. And they said, well, let's at least look at what you guys bought to see if you paid the use tax. So in that instance, I wouldn't guarantee it, but Andy said that they didn't even bother to look at their sales journals to try and see if there was any mistakes. So, yeah.
And
Awesome.
the other thing that I love is that, you know, because we have been doing this for a while. We specialize in having, you know, really high quality content and things like that. But of course, you know, everyone always asks us, you know, how confident are you on your taxability codes? How confident are you on the accuracy of your rates? And we do get to say that, you know, 5 states now actually purchase their content from Avalara. So
Oh, wow.
it's given us a little leverage. You know, I love hearing the stories of when an auditor comes in to a client of ours and they realize both of them are using tax content from Avalara. It's kind of a funny scenario, you know. They both kind of shake their heads. So.
The other thing I wanted to show you is it's really cool for your client that, or you could do this for them, there's a filing archive. So if they ever wanted to see, okay, well, let's look at the actual form that was filed, you know, we could go into the filing archive and they could self-service and pull up, oh, here's the California form, and I don't know if this pulling it up here will show on your screen. Looks like it will.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the form that you filed and everything. So it's a really good end-to-end compliance solution. So again, it eliminates them having to research rates and build tables and build out these tax processes. But it actually, at the same time, helps them simplify the filing process and the payment process. There's another area where you might have seen client needs. You know, it used to be in the early days of the company, we talked to companies using platforms like Sage or QuickBooks, and they'd say, well, I don't really need to worry about sales tax because I sell through a distribution channel. And you know, we would move on to talk to the next company. But what we found over time, of course, is that those companies that don't sell directly to an end user might have a whole different problem, and it's managing these file cabinets of tax certificates and trying to produce those in an audit. So we have a tool where, let's say I'm in QuickBooks and I'm on the phone with you, Gina, and you say, you know, I say it's $100 in tax, and you say, well, wait a minute, I should be exempt. I can pull down an option within QuickBooks, and I can send you electronic requests, so either via an email or a fax. Some companies still want to do like mail merges and send stuff out in the mail, but you could get this email that says, you know, Gina, I'm requesting your California resale certificate. You could either attach your resale certificate if you already have something filled out, or you could actually just click on a link and go through a wizard, and if you guys want to see it, I can show that. But you could actually go through this process of submitting the certificate online. Then it's stored in a central repository, so you always have it available to produce in an audit. But the feedback that we get for these companies when we ask how they're managing their certificates, it's always the same answer nearly every time, which is we use a fax machine or a filing cabinet to manage these. And you know, and a lot of times what happens is an auditor comes in and they start asking for these documents, and people are freaking out trying to get them from everyone. And this just proactively makes sure that before you exempt any sale, that you have the right documents on file. And you know, for example, if those documents expire, the system knows to have you go out and request new ones. So in these, in my demo company here, I don't know why all of a sudden I'm getting that message. That's weird. Let's go in here. So there's a certificate repository here that applies it to calculations. So you can see, for example, that if I sell to A Electric Supply, which is customer 1030 in QuickBooks, that the system knows they've provided a certificate because their reason for exemption is state government, but they're exempt in Florida, Idaho, and Washington. So if we sell to them at one of those locations, they're exempt. But if as the seller, I have Nexus in California, the system knows that we don't have a California certificate yet. So makes it pretty easy to manage those.
Hey, Mark,
Do we have
will you
yeah.
show the wizard?
Yeah, I can show that. Sure.
I just think it's a cool tool to check out.
So I am going to have to see if you can you still see my screen where it's going to, it says welcome to Cert Express?
Not yet.
I might have to try and reshare this.
There you go.
Let me try something here. There we go. Let's try and screen share. And can I see? It doesn't want to let me go to a different browser. Let me try something else really quick. I'm sorry. I am going to try to go back to that same browser.
We're just early on in the 21st century. You're safe.
I'm trying to keep up. Let's try. You see that? Welcome to Cert Express.
We're still seeing you.
Huh.
Yeah, Google's being very, very. I keep getting frozen out myself.
Are you? Huh.
Yeah, being very funny today. But I am not in my normal location.
Well, let me try this now. How about now?
Yeah, there we go.
Does that work?
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
we got you, Mark.
So what I did was I sent myself an email earlier pretending this scenario. I'm a California business called Frog House. They're actually a surfboard shop. And I said, you know, I'm going to be exempt here. So as the seller, you know, we're on the phone. Let's say, Gina, you work for Frog House, and I've tried to charge you tax, and you said, wait a minute, I'm exempt. You got an email that said, hey, you know, feel free to attach your exemption certificate to this email and respond back. Otherwise, you can go out to this link and submit it there. So this is the link that the buyer clicks on. You know, I'm going to go ahead and I'll pretend part of Frog House too, and I'll say, to tell the seller that they're exempt. And we, by the way, you all might want to jot down the URL certexpress.com. That's a free tool that you can hand out to any of your clients that if they're getting certificates without even paying Avalara, if you go out to Cert Express, like I could have anyone go out and fill out a certificate for me at certexpress.com, and they can email it to me as a vendor without even having an Avalara account. Or if your client, you have a client that sends out a lot of certificates where they need to prove that they're exempt, they could initiate these online very similar to what I'm doing here. But so as Frog House, it says we're missing your California certificate. So myself being the buyer, Frog House, I just click on that and it says, you know, why is the purchase exempt? I say, well, I'm a reseller.
Oh, there's the agriculture one.
Yeah. Can I go back to that? Let's see. Yeah, and to your point, that, you know, there is...
At the bottom, purchase will be used in agriculture activities. Everybody in California gets 5.5% less. And it must be the part that goes to the state, not the city or the county, because they're doing agriculture.
Yeah, we saw the same thing. So there is that reduced rate for agriculture. There's also been one, and I can't remember the specific statute, but I think it was just July 1st that they passed another reduced rate for certain type of manufacturing activities.
Got it.
So they can submit this form right online here. So I'm going to enter my permit number, and it asks what I'm selling.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm making this up, but I'm trying to be creative. And then check this out. As the buyer, all I have to do is sign this on screen. This is the hardest part of the demo. Let's see.
Signing.
Sign my name. And
There you go. I see that, Mike.
yeah, now that stops me from, see what I did? I didn't fill out all the information, so it stopped me from proceeding because that certificate could be kicked out of an audit. So it makes sure I've got all the information for the certificate before I submit it. And then the buyer themselves has access to download a copy for their records. But of course, our seller, the Avalara customer, has that document now immediately accessible and stored in an electronic file cabinet, so to speak, so they don't ever have to worry about losing it. And one of the other things, I know it's really hard. Some companies say, you know, just the task of calling someone enough times to get them to send their certificate, this tends to make it easier for the client. So,
and I want to say, I think that
go ahead, sorry.
clients to get all of those certificates. And I think that there are buyers that say that they're exempt but may not be. This kind of proves that, you know, they have to fill this out before they get the exempt status.
Exactly. And on the back end, so this is what I filled out with my signature on it right there. And then on the back end, if I go to app.certcapture, the seller also has an interface, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, but as the seller, I could go in and I can see, you know, what certificates are being processed. I can run reports. So I could see, like, if I wanted to run a report and see, you know, what, I don't know why that's happening. What is the, what customer's exemption certificate? Because there's some companies I hear, like in Florida, the resale certificates expire every year if there hasn't been a purchase made by that buyer. So here you see these are all exposure zones where I don't have certificates for these Pennsylvania customers. They're expiring here, coming up due within the next 6 months. So this gives them a better filing cabinet where they can retrieve it for the auditor, but also so that they know, you know, where they have gaps in those documents. And those are a big deal. We had a customer that came to us that went through an audit, and you know, the tendency for these businesses is not knowing much about audits and stuff is to think about these certificates like pieces of paper. And so they built these processes around collecting pieces of paper, but this client said that they have changed their mindset having gone through an audit. To them, this is currency, right? Because that piece of paper represents tax that they didn't collect that could be way more in an audit, because they were missing one certificate, and I think it was $2,400 it was going to end up costing them in an audit. It's a pretty expensive piece of paper.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Those, you know, and I know there's some questions that kind of came in earlier that I deferred that we probably want to get back to. We should open it up to questions, though. You know, I wanted to give kind of an end-to-end idea as far as how this works, and I think the 3 key areas, you know, the takeaway for you is we can help your clients, one, save as it relates to administering, you know, tax content. They don't have to research rates. They don't have to build tables. They don't have to build out their own tax processes. I think, 2, we can simplify the filing process for them so that they don't have to spend time. You know, I don't know if I mentioned it, stop me if I'm repeating myself, but Aberdeen Group did a study, and they found that even the smallest companies out there spend on average about $24,000 a year to maintain compliance, and they found the average fine in an audit is about the same amount.
Wow.
So we can save them not only in terms of, you know, eliminating time and effort, but also helping them to do it accurately so they don't carry that risk in their business. Because that's all every business is trying to do, is balance the cost of the process with the result, you know, how much at risk they are. And we can do that, you know, in a number of ways around calculating and storing these certificates and filing their taxes. Are there some more questions, Gina, or other things we want to talk about?
I have a question. I arrived late, I apologize, but I know there's this legislation sort of winding its way through Congress on sales tax, and I was wondering what the practical impact would be on our clients, what practical change there would be for our clients if this passes.
Well, let me give you a couple of things to think about there. The Senate bill passed, because this went through the Senate, and it passed 69 to 27, so it was a pretty overwhelming majority of senators that voted for this law. It's got kind of hung up in the House. Now, I've heard a couple of things about, like, one thing they tried to do was last year to try and sandwich this amidst the National Defense Authorization Act to try and pass it through. I know there's been more than one attempt to do that kind of thing. I just heard recently, what did I hear? Within a week or so ago, there was another bill that they were trying to get it as an amendment to. So the House is going to continue to try and push this issue through. But one of the things that I ask is, whether or not the national legislation passes, is that the issue to care about? So, one point that I'd make is if it does pass in its current form, what went through the Senate, it would require every remote seller, which is any business that's selling out of state more than $1 million in gross sales, they would be required to collect tax in all the participating states. There's probably 24 states that immediately are ready to implement this type of system. So when you say what happens if it passes, theoretically your customers could, maybe they're only located in a particular state, they could add immediately 20 or more states that they have to begin registration for, which could be done in one process rather than individually with the states. But they'd have to collect the taxes for all the jurisdictions within those 24 states. It's probably hundreds of thousands of jurisdictions that they'd have to manage. There's certainly some audit questions that are out there that people are concerned. What would this mean from an audit perspective in terms of being able to be audited by these states that they're not necessarily directly influenced by? But the other point that I'd make, and I turn it back to you if you want to talk more specifically about an area, is we're already seeing many states, I think there's 13 states, if I'm not mistaken, that have passed e-commerce legislation where they're targeting affiliate sellers or these click-through agreements. So, like, Dennis, if you have, let's say I'm a business, let's say I'm Amazon and you have a website for camping stuff, and you have a banner ad that refers the website user to Amazon to buy camping gear, and then in return I'm Amazon, I pay you a commission. Many states are implementing laws to try and clamp down on e-commerce to make it so that the customer has to pay whether or not this Marketplace Fairness Act passes or not.
Well, would it change the definition of nexus, or would it expand on it, or?
It would basically expand it. So in addition to having a physical presence, a company would have to look at it's basically where they're selling, as opposed to traditionally where they have a physical connection or a nexus. Mm-hmm. Amazon at one point was kind of fighting this fight for e-commerce companies because they wanted to have the cheapest prices and they didn't want to have to charge tax. They saw that as a higher price to their customer, even though it's a pass-through. For many years they were against it and lobbying against this type of stuff. But their tune has changed a bit because they're trying to go to this business model that allows for overnight delivery, which means they're going to have warehouses everywhere anyways. And now Amazon's kind of flipped, and they're one of, I think there's over 100 major companies that are lobbying for this legislation because Amazon doesn't want the small guys to have the same advantage that they enjoyed. And so, there's a lot of layers to this argument. I think the worst case scenario is your client dramatically expands their compliance obligation. But I think whether or not that bill passes, the states are kind of left to their own devices, because the last thing that happened significant was Amazon went to the Supreme Court and they were petitioning them in Overstock to hear this case. And the Supreme Court on Cyber Monday of last year said we don't want to hear the case. We've already ruled on this with the Quill decision back in the 90s. It's really up to Congress or the states to manage this issue. I don't know if that's helpful to your specific question. Hopefully that gives a little context around it.
Well, I've got a client right now. It could impact them in the sense that I'm actually in the Seattle area, Linwood, so I'm up in your neck of the woods.
Oh, cool.
And I've got one client, they sell courses, and he's having to manually keep track of the sales in the state of Washington so I can sort of back into the sales tax, because their systems don't really give him the reports. He has to do it manually, but I don't think he's doing anything for other states where it's being sold, and so potentially he could be impacted by that, where he might have to collect sales tax for other states where he's selling.
Right. Yeah. I think most companies are taking a wait and see approach, but I'll tell you, even 3 years ago, there was a major e-commerce company out in Minnesota that reached out to us because they felt that this legislation was inevitable, and what they feared was, we don't want to be in a position where a law passes and then we're scrambling to put something in place to handle it. So they were kind of proactively addressing it. Now, like I said, most people are kind of waiting and seeing. But I think the trend we'll see, if there's not national legislation, the states are going to continue to pass these laws to go after more money, because it's really all about the money grab. The National Retail Federation estimates it's $24 billion in tax that goes uncollected every year because of e-commerce sales.
Well,
So,
is PayPal doing anything with this? It seemed like if they're not, they'd be a natural partner for you to work with, because they do tons of,
right.
transactions.
Yeah, I don't know where we're at in talking with PayPal, but it would make a lot of sense. We work with, as Madeline said, we work with accounting software platforms and e-commerce platforms. We also work with payment gateways, and so PayPal you could classify as one of those to some degree, or exactly, depending on what you think about it. So there's a lot of opportunity to solve this issue, and I think at the end of the day, Avalara doesn't take a stance one way or the other whether the law is good or not. We think tax is complex whether any more laws pass or not, but we certainly can help people solve the problem from the e-commerce perspective, or or just dealing with what they're dealing with today. So, yeah.
And then I think the best thing too is just having a solution that would work in the event of a change. Mark said it's true. There's a fair amount of people who kind of have a wait and see attitude about things. But I would also say that we're definitely noticing an uptick of people who don't necessarily just want to wait and see and scramble. They like the fact that we offer a solution that, at the click of a button, should anything change, you can go from collecting and remitting in one state to all 50, with pretty ease. Granted, you have to go get registered in all those states, but hopefully, the legislation will conduct itself in a way that makes that easy for businesses.
Would you have a resource page on your website, or a page where keeping track of what's going on with the legislation? Or?
Yeah, I'll post it in the chat here. We have a great website. It's just called Sales Tax Changes, and it's actually where we just keep everything up to date as much as possible. What's going on with legislation?
You'll see my screen. I just pulled it up there.
Oh,
Sales.
awesome. Thanks, Mark.
Great.
So it seemed like it'd be good to get on board with this now before it hits.
Yeah, and we have some really, really great content as well. So, again, I'm with our accounting partnership program, and previously, Avalara, we've always been, a technology company and a software company. But we've really grown to be an industry leader around content about sales tax, because it is just such a tricky area, and CPAs need to be educated for your clients. And so we have a lot of really great resources, white papers, webinars that just address, how do you talk to your clients about sales tax? How do you talk to your clients about changes in sales tax legislation? We do recurring webinars on the Marketplace Fairness Act. So you can kind of better understand the way it's unfolding. And the great news is that a lot of those webinars are actually for CPE credit for free, which is really awesome. So, it's a great way, you can do something like where you're on your computer having lunch and earning an hour and a half of CPE, which is really nice. So,
how about a Twitter account where you could retweet some information to your clients?
Yeah, that would be great.
Twitter as well, absolutely. So, Madeline, maybe we should hook up Dennis with Will. Will really runs our social media stuff.
Well,
some stuff.
Great. So Madeline, what I'd like you to do, we are close to the end of time now, but can you tell us how we can partner? Yes. What exactly, where do we go, what steps do we take, and what is the process like?
So I'm going to show, let me pull up the website, just give me one moment. So there's a couple key points here that I want to make. So obviously, tend to be a referral model. Oftentimes, we will work with clients as what we consider to be the end user of our technology, because it's often a case where your client, maybe they started and they were a small to medium-sized business, and now they're just growing so rapidly that they need a solution that is going to help outsource the process. So here's, just to show you all, this is the web page for becoming an Avalara partner, and so we also have started to work in a slightly different way, and that is by being essentially a tool that can be utilized by accountants and bookkeepers to leverage on behalf of your clients. It's a new model that we've moved into, but there was just more and more demand, especially from CPAs who maybe you have one version of QuickBooks Enterprise and you just want to be able to manage all of your clients and handle sales tax for them individually, or maybe you need a way to handle all of your clients' sales tax returns. So we're happy to work in both ways, whatever is the best fit for your client and your practice. And I'm always available to talk about kind of some of the differences. Another thing I'll mention about becoming an Avalara partner is there are some really great benefits. The first, of course, being all of our content, so white papers, webinars, resources that originally, were just available for people to look at. We now have a special marketing center that you can actually take all of those resources and brand them with your own logo and your own little bit of copy and information, and then you can send them out to all of your clients. So essentially, you now have a whole wealth of sales tax expertise that you get to co-opt and call your own and use to grow your practice and just keep your clients educated. And that's one of the benefits. It's called the Avalara Marketing Center, and by becoming a partner, you get access to that, and you can do email campaigns, or you can build a custom landing page, or build a section of your website that includes content around sales tax and Avalara. So that's really cool. And then the other thing I do want to mention is, so by becoming an Avalara partner, there's two options as far as we do a commission share. So we offer a 20% revenue share for referring clients to Avalara, and we also give the option that if you'd like to leverage that revenue in the form of a discount, your clients will get 20% off of Avalara's services. So it's a pretty great, the firms we work with really love that option. Particularly, most of them lean towards the discount option. Because a lot of times, you're just focusing on being everything you can to your clients, and you really just want to find a solution that works for them and will help them be compliant going forward. And so it's kind of that great little, swift but nice kick in the rear to get clients on board, with a solution that will work with them. That 20% gives them a little bit more incentive to get up and running with the solution. And I think it's a great way to just acknowledge that you have a relationship with Avalara, and that you're a partner of ours, and we really value, we super value the expertise that a CPA brings to the table, and just, the trusted relationship that you have with your clients. We feel really lucky to have a solution that, we know our technology is great, but it's a whole other thing to have CPAs and consultants recommend us to their clients, because that recommendation is just invaluable. It's really incredible. And the last little piece I wanted to talk about, because Mark touched on this a little bit, is we really, really love working with you and your clients simultaneously. So if you do have a client that wants to look at Avalara services, we want you to be a part of that process. If you want to jump on the calls with the client, if you want to be a part of the demo, we want to have you there, because obviously, you might be interfacing with the technology on behalf of them. There's certain kind of questions that you're going to have that are different than the client, particularly if you've been handling their compliance process. And then going forward, if the client chooses to work with Avalara software, there's steps regarding setting up your Nexus profile, mapping those product codes that Mark showed, mapping those over to your client's products and services. Those are all pieces where it's really, really helpful to have a CPA involved, and you can work closely with your client, better understand our technology, and essentially be be part of the implementation team as well. So it's a really great way for you to interface with our technology and also make sure that the client go live process is that much faster and is that much personalized. So hopefully that gives you all some context. I have already posted this link here in our chat over here on the right. The partnership information is over here. And
it's up at the top.
yeah. And then I'm going to...
And I did try to put them in the showcase.
Oh, nice.
So they are accessible. I'm not sure what's happening with Google today. It's been a little bit particular. That's kind of why I wanted you to go over it again, Maddie. Thank you.
Yeah, why don't you just copy and paste the link again? Maybe I can do it.
Yeah. Let me do it one more time. And then I'm putting it in the chat. I'm putting in Mark and my email as well, because like I said, I work with CPAs and consultants all day, every day. I love talking to CPAs. Love talking about great off-the-wall client scenarios. Did you find it, Linda? We all have those clients. I mean, you know.
Absolutely.
Sales tax is my client is a celebrity and they travel to 15 different states every other month. Is that a nexus constituting activity? Like, well, let's call up one of our tax content specialists and figure out, you know, what's going on with that. What is the case? There's always that one client that's got the crazy, you know, whether it's Linda's beekeepers or or what have you. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, great. I think we had an excellent hangout, even with Google's little glitches today. Thank you so much, Maddie and Mark, for coming on and sharing with us. I believe it's an awesome program, and I do think that CPAs do need to look into this a lot more going forward. So thanks again. I really appreciate you being here.
Yep, and I was just going to say before we hop off, we're also at a lot of events and trade shows. So I fly out to New Orleans next week for AICPA Edge. We're going to be at some state society events. We'll be at a Boomer conference, and we're at Scaling New Heights this year. I'm forgetting. There's another big conference in November, so keep an eye out for us if you're traveling, if you're going to any industry.
November.
Yeah, there you go, Sleater. That was the one.
We're at Sleater, so.
Awesome. So come say hi. We'll be at the booth. We'll have lots of fun. Avalara tchotchkes. You can take stuff back to your office, back to your clients. Anybody who needs help, just come swing by and come find us if you're at a trade show. With likely somebody from Avalara will be there. So come say hi.
I don't know how you work in an office with the orange walls.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Alrighty, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you all next week.
All right.
Okay.
Finally make it, Christina.